It might surprise you to know that when Alan Turing and his fellow brainiacs turned their attention to cracking Enigma, they weren't starting from scratch. Enigma had already been broken and broken and broken again in the years leading up to the Second World War. This tremendous feat was achieved by a small team of Polish mathematicians who, though often forgotten, laid the foundations for one of the most important intelligence projects of the Second World War. This story begins in December 1918, after Poland regained its independence. Only 3 months later, the Soviets decided they wanted a piece of the pie and the Red Army invaded. But this wasn't the Red Army of World War II. Far from it. Stalin's purges hadn't yet decimated the officer corps, and consequently, many commanders were older Tsarist officers. They were stuck in the old ways and didn't understand the importance of encrypting their radio messages. You would have thought they'd learned their lesson after Tannenberg, but the officers were still sending orders out over the radio with barely any encryption. In the words of Polish Colonel Mieczysław Szczecinski, messages were being transmitted either entirely plain text or encrypted by means of such an incredibly uncomplicated system that, for our trained specialists, reading the messages was child's play. In Poland, the army's cipher section picked up these Soviet transmissions, and it wasn't long before they cracked the codes. 3 months after the Polish-Soviet War began in February, Polish High Command was fully aware of Soviet battle plans, sometimes before Soviet soldiers were. Toward the end of the war, defeat after defeat was inflicted on the Bolsheviks, and largely due to cipher section intelligence, the Polish were able to snag some serious peace deal concessions. In early 1928, a mysterious package arrived at the Warsaw Customs Office. It was from Germany and apparently contained radio equipment. The officials thought nothing of it until the manufacturer got in touch and demanded the package be sent back immediately without inspection. Naturally, the Poles were curious and opened the box, only to find a machine they didn't recognize. A team from Cipher Section were called in to examine it, and they were fascinated. It was an early commercial Enigma machine. After taking detailed notes on its operation, the machine was sent back to Germany as ordered, but now, Cipher Section knew the Germans were up to something. In the early 1930s, the German military began using modified Enigma machines like the one from the customs office to transmit encrypted messages. Throughout the decade, German manufacturers secretly improved Enigma's design. Even with their extensive prior knowledge, messages sent on later Enigma machines confounded Polish codebreakers. Remembering the role intelligence played in their victory during the Polish-Soviet War, the Polish army decided to throw its weight behind the codebreakers at Cipher Section. They got a budget increase, several hand-picked mathematicians from Poznan University, and were renamed to the Cipher Bureau. One of their new recruits was Marian Rejewski, who began working for the army as a cryptologist in 1930. Having had their eyes on Rejewski for some time, the Polish intelligence service offered him, and several others, a spot on a secret cryptography training course. The workload was immense, and only 3 students passed. In 1932, Enigma transmissions were becoming increasingly frequent, and the Poles were, rightfully, getting nervous. Time was wearing on, and they were no closer to cracking the machine's secrets. That was until Rejewski started working on it. After taking one look at Cipher Bureau's methods, he scrapped them. These old methods relied on letter frequency analysis and linguistic patterns to break the cipher. For example, E is the most common letter in German and appears around 17% of the time. So the Poles expected to find a substitute letter for E around 17% of the time too. Great in principle, but not when it comes to Enigma. In an Enigma machine, E could become several different letters which messed up the probabilities. Additionally, several different letters could all come out of the machine as an E, making things even tougher for the codebreakers. But this is where Rejewski's theorem came in. Using pure mathematics, something that had never been done before in cryptography, Rejewski put together a theorem that explained the relationships between letters inside the Enigma machine. It was groundbreaking stuff and has even been touted as the theorem that won World War II. But Rejewski wasn't working alone. He had some serious help. Not from other codebreakers, as few could match his mathematical skill, but from the French, who were neck deep in espionage. Happy to help out anyone working against the Germans, the French intelligence service passed top secret Enigma documents onto the Polish codebreakers. But where did they get the documents? Hans-Thilo Schmidt, the brother of Wehrmacht General Rudolf Schmidt, lived quite an extravagant life. He greatly enjoyed throwing large sums of money around and generally playing the role of a big shot. Sadly, the meager salary he earned from his position in the German Armed Forces Cipher Office just wouldn't cover his expenses. Unlike his brother, Hans was no friend to the Nazis and believed they were ruining Germany. To get back at them and fund his high rolling at the same time, Hans offered to sell Enigma documents to French intelligence. He was given the codename Asche, and his secrets were passed on to Gustave Bertrand, the head of French radio intelligence, who in turn passed them on to Polish mathematicians. For the Poles, these documents proved to be a goldmine. Asche provided them with cipher keys, duplicate plain text and encoded messages, and even instructions for operating an Enigma machine. Combined with what they already knew about Enigma, the Poles had all they needed to crack the code. By early 1933, Polish Cipher Bureau was regularly decrypting German radio traffic. So as long as documents from Asche kept coming, they could keep up with everything the German military was up to. But Asche wouldn't be around forever. One mistake could land their German mole in a Gestapo torture chamber and leave the Poles in the dark again. But luckily for the Allies, Asche was careful. Multiple Gestapo investigations sought to discover the source of radio intelligence leaks before the war started, but they never suspected Hans. As the brother of a respected general, he was politically untouchable. Hans knew his connections were buying him out of trouble, but he still enjoyed seeing the Gestapo crawl around looking for traitors, only to come back with nothing. From 1936 onwards, German High Command began implementing new procedures that made Enigma drastically harder to break. They reset the plug boards more often, switched the rotor positions daily, and tightened up radio net security. New techniques had to be developed by the codebreakers, and they were successful, but it was taking them longer and longer to break the encryption. To expedite the process, Rejewski designed and built an electromechanical machine called Bomber. It was essentially an aggregate of 6 Enigma machines and was used together with the traditional longhand methods. With an efficient team, Bomber could work out the daily Enigma cipher key in about 2 hours. This feat of engineering kept Polish generals informed of virtually all German plans. When the Wehrmacht invaded on September 1st, Polish High Command knew 95% of the German order of battle. Knowing what the Germans were planning, Polish High Command ordered Cipher Bureau give all the intelligence it had to French and British representatives in July 1939. Rejewski and his mathematicians handed over a reconstructed Enigma machine, a bomber, instructions on how to break the code longhand, and records of German intercepts to both countries. The gift, as it was called, represented Poland passing the code-breaking baton to France and Britain for the rest of the war. During the handover, a British officer asked Rejewski the most pressing question everybody had about the Enigma machine. How were the letters arranged on the entry drum? This question confounded the Brits for years, but for the Poles, it was obvious. They guessed that the well-ordered Germans would organize everything in alphabetical order. They were correct, and the Brits were dumbfounded. When Poland was lost to the German advance, Cipher Bureau burned all of its documents and destroyed all its equipment. But their vital contribution to the war effort lived on in England. Gordon Welchman, a Bletchley Park mathematician and cryptologist, stated, "Ultra, the Enigma code-breaking project, would never have gotten off the ground if we had not learned from the Poles in the nick of time, the details of the Enigma machine and of the operating procedures that were in use. Captured, tortured, and executed, none of those who worked at Cipher Bureau spilled the beans about their discoveries. Most were killed in prison camps during the later years of the war, and their enduring silence allowed their comrades overseas to capitalize on a decade of Polish code-breaking work." That was the story of the Polish mathematicians who first broke Enigma and laid the foundation for the most important intelligence operation of the entire Second World War. But what do you think? Are you surprised the Germans wired their machine up in alphabetical order? Did you know Enigma was broken as far back as 1932? How much longer do you think it would have taken to break the code had Hans not sold out the Nazis? And how much do you think those brave Polish codebreakers, who even kept quiet during Gestapo torture sessions, changed the world as we know it today? Let us know all that and more in the comment section below. As always guys, thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something new.